Welcome, everyone, into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of serving privately owned small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell. Enterprise Bank's commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank. Together, there is no stopping you. I'm Joel Goldberg, coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcav.com. Before I get into my guest today, a couple of quick notes. First and foremost, been doing a lot of streaming with this podcast. We'll continue to do so, but I want to direct everyone to be able to see any of these podcasts. If you listen on iTunes, Spotify, wherever it is, and I would love a rating on iTunes if you don't mind. But also, if you want to watch the video version of this, if you're sitting around, if you want to see the actual video, there'll be a corresponding video. There is a corresponding video to every podcast. You can do so on my YouTube page. Just search Joel Goldberg Media or Rounding the Bases, and you will find it there. The other note, I've been mentioning it. If you're interested in my book, you can find it on Amazon. It's called Small Ball, Big Results, or you can reach out to me on social media or through our website, joelgoldbergmedia.com. We can do autographed copies and get those out to you as well. As for my guest today, there are some guests that wear one hat, some wear two hats. I believe that my guest today wears somewhere in the, 50 hats, 100 hats. I just want to read a smidgen of some of what is on his LinkedIn in terms of specialties. And you'll see that this is no exaggeration. Branding, change management. I'm glad that he put them in alphabetical order too. Creative, digital and social media, entrepreneurial, executive suite, financial, food and beverage, franchise, higher education, human capital. I'll read all of them. Leadership and management, leadership development, marketing, media, merchandising, nonprofit, operations, organizational behaviors and development, packaged goods, philanthropy, promotions, events, public relations, real estate, retail, sales, sports, strategic thinking, telecom, wireless, training, and inspirational speaking. That's a lot. And when you hear about the resume, you'll understand why. And it's a fascinating journey of how Jaysen Van Sickle ended up where he is at today. Jaysen Van Sickle is the executive director of Hope Faith, and he joins me right now to talk about a million things that are going on in the world, most of which are affected by this pandemic, and a true reminder that the show has to go on. The show always goes on, and there's a need for it to go on with what Jaysen and his staff are doing. First and foremost, I'm tired now from reading all of that. Jaysen, how are you?
I'm awesome. Hey, Joel, how are you?
I'm good, and it's great to see you. And I read that off only because, when you and I spent a little bit of time getting to know each other and you started telling me about your background and your history, I think we all have interesting journeys. We really do. Some may seem more interesting than others, but it backs up what I always believe, that everyone has a story to tell. Yours just went down all kinds of interesting paths. Let me start with this. Let's talk about what you do and Hope Faith, and then we'll backtrack and figure out how in the world you got to this point.
So my current role is executive director for Hope Faith. We are Kansas City's only homeless assistance campus. So we are a day center. We're not a shelter. So our basic, outline is pretty much you get to Hope Faith during the day, Monday through Saturday, and we are just, I kind of call us the Grand Central Station for homeless and low-income needs in the greater Kansas City area. So we received a lot of, recent acknowledgement, obviously from, Mayor Lucas and some other groups, really trying to do what we can during this pandemic. But, at the end of the day, Hope Faith's overall goal is to reduce the amount of time people are homeless, or just prevent them from being homeless altogether. So it's been a very interesting 11 months, to say the least.
Well, how have you been able to do that? Because I know, and any organization right now that is susceptible to this pandemic, everyone is for that matter, but many organizations can work from home. They can move everything and do the 2020 pivot, as so many of us have done. You don't have that ability. So how have you been able to adapt?
So, and like you said, my background kind of put me in an interesting universe here, but we already knew beginning of last year what was coming. It was just, we can either choose to be reactive or proactive. And so when we knew things were coming down the pipeline, we just sat down as an executive team here at Hope Faith and said, hey, we can't shut down. How do we make this happen? And so I pulled from my old event days and my old street fair days, and I said, okay, the best thing is outdoors is safe, right? Open air is safe. So we literally moved our 50,000 square foot operation out into a city block. Mayor Lucas basically called up and says, well, what do you need? I was like, well, I need you to block off the street. We need water. We need barricades. We need to make sure that people know that this is no longer a throughway. And the joke became, well, how did you come up with your opening date? I go, it was an Amazon Prime date. I literally purchased some big outdoor tents, and Amazon Prime said they would be here on this day. And I said, okay, guys, this is the day we'll be open. And then we just partnered up with all of our fellow agencies. We even had Team Rubicon, Team Red, White, and Blue, a lot of veteran agencies come out. And porta potties and tents and everything later, we just took our entire operation, pushed it out into the street, and we've been doing it for the last 11 months.
And figured out how to stay safe too, which is no easy task. I mean, I don't want to sit there and even say it's as simple as, well, if you do this right, you're guaranteed anything. I mean, there are a lot of curveballs being thrown, pardon the baseball term, in this pandemic as we all continue to learn. But how have you been able to manage that? And also just in a way of, I mean, that takes a lot of buy-in from anyone that is really in the Hope Faith ecosystem.
Right. And so first and foremost, safety, 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 right? And so we ended up with a brand new medical partner at the beginning of the pandemic, and they're called Heart to Heart International, and they mainly respond to crisis. So like hurricanes and natural disasters, they'll roll in with their mobile medical units with volunteer doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners. So they came in and said, hey, we see what you guys are doing. This is a medical pandemic. Do you need help? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I can only do so much food, but they have been amazing. We've had COVID tests every 4 weeks for my staff. We are already teamed up with the state, and we provide free COVID testing to any of those people coming in showing symptoms. We also provide medical support every single day. From the get-go, we went and had all of our staff go through personal protective equipment training and watching videos, and we're constantly re-upping that and making sure that we just provide endless supplies to our staff. And so a lot of it's just education and making sure, we make sure that we stay safe. Because again, 11 months and still, knock on something, we're still going at it. But yeah, I mean, it's a scare every time we go out there. I mean, just like any, frontline worker would be. I mean, we are putting all of our lives in harm's way on a daily basis.
How much does it help having that outdoor environment? I mean, I know from a science standpoint, that would bear out that the odds are more in your favor. But how about from a logistics standpoint? It's not as simple as just going on Amazon Prime. And I know you're not saying that it is, but how have you been able to thrive in such a unique circumstance?
So, from day one, I was on the news talking about this is a multi-season pandemic. This is not going to just be 2 months and we're done. So we've been planning ahead. So we knew when we opened in March that it was going to be a little cold. So we had heaters, right? We knew it was going to be hot in the summer. So we got big shop fans with misters on them. We knew in the fall it was going to be a little cold. So we started planning out a warming center. So we took everything, every shelf, everything out of our warehouse, and we put those big refrigerator plastic strips on the warehouse doors, and we got in ionizers to air purify, and just converted it into a warming center, but still utilizing the outside with electric heaters during this pandemic. And so making sure that everyone has an opportunity to be warm, be dry. We still provide showers, and again, we let people in one at a time, do not have too much, but we're still outside. I'm sitting in my office, obviously, because there's still administrative pieces, but we don't have volunteers in here, which has also helped from people bringing it from the outside in as well.
What's an everyday life look like, beginning to end, at Hope Faith, for someone that is coming in that wants to utilize Hope Faith? What does a day look like?
So under COVID, we have been opening up at 7:30 instead of 6:30. But you get there, immediately we try to provide warmth, some amazing roastery coffee because, love Danny and the roastery. And so providing them coffee, breakfast, getting them set up on a showers. We have what we call our human services team. So we have on-site counselors, we have on-site social workers, we have a preventative diversion team, which is sole job is to help them, get to whatever they need during a day. And so what's really cool is that we just now launched our bus system called Hope Bus, very creative, which is a homeless transportation program that we've now unveiled. So we have 2 mini buses. And the purpose behind that is that we're connecting every homeless agency, even social security office. So you can just get on the bus free of charge and connect and just reduce the amount of time instead of having to walk to every homeless agency or shelter to get services. So we've just reduced that amount of time, or we're calling ahead for you and letting that other agency know that we're sending a guest over for their help.
Well, you've got so much going on, and I sense, and I'm sure there are plenty of sleepless nights, and oh, by the way, you still have to go home and be dad and then make all this work during the day. So that's not easy, but I sense, I might be wrong, that this is your calling, this is your purpose. It's not, I don't think it's anything that you ever really envisioned as you were kind of climbing the ranks professionally and all that you were doing. I wasn't really joking when I listed off all of your skills, because they very much reflect the journey that you have taken, one that has gone anywhere from bars and restaurants to corporate and Sprint and pretty much anything in between. But how would you sum that up? You don't have to list every single job, but give my listeners and viewers an idea of some of the professions and fields that you've been in.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, one of the things that I look for, even when I'm interviewing people for Hope Faith, is I look for a couple different trigger things. I want my kids to be proud of me statement, and I'm not going to be buried with my with my resume on my tombstone. So you're looking for people who are really wanting to roll up their sleeves and share this knowledge. And so for me, it's that all that stuff that you listed on my LinkedIn, I pretty much got to dump it into a blender, and that is that frappe basically that I get to work with on a daily basis. So, when we talk about everything, kind of was leading me to this, because this is a passion project. This is clearly not the highest pay I've ever received. I came from corporate America, but this is my favorite job. I keep on joking. I go, people pay me to have fun. So, backtracking, I guess, chronologically, if you want. My past is very, very diverse. I've had an amazing journey. So if you can imagine, I started my career, my first job out of college was with the Kansas City Star. And I was part of the inaugural KansasCity.com team. So back in the Disney days, the ABC Disney days, when they still owned it. And so I was at the forefront of launching .com. So it was such an amazing time, because if we wanted someone to do a web chat, we had to run an ad in the Kansas City Star telling people to log on at this time to talk. And you and I were talking about, I remember a rookie Johnny Damon, and the two of us huddling in my office, giggling like, little kids. And who would have thunk, all these years later, he would be Johnny Damon, and so, but that was kind of that fun back in the day, and just teaming up with all the different affiliates. And so that kind of gave birth to this passion and excitement for, advertising and media communications. And so from that, I worked my way through advertising. So everything from a creative director to director of promotions. And I worked my way up to being a managing officer of an ad agency. And so you and I talked about, I remember our amazing Kathy Nelson, who's now the the CEO for the sports commission, and, being on all the planning committees back in the day when she was still at Metro Sports, and watching the great and powerful Kevin Gray, work and create this amazing sports community in the greater Kansas City area. And so I got to go along for the ride and got to help produce and design and create all those huge, big Kansas City events, and was there at the inaugural Speedway. So it just feels like, I felt like I was always at the right place at the right time. And then from ad agency land, I moved on to, Sprint, where I got to take on retail marketing, and my job was to bring you to doors. And then I moved over to the operations side, where I was then in charge of building all the doors. And so it was really just an amazing world. And all along that path, I also had, like you said, I owned restaurants and bars in Kansas City for 15 years. And so I very much have learned to appreciate the little guy, the startup, the entrepreneurial piece, as well as the corporate America, but also communications, PR, and promotions. Been in the pizzeria business, been in the bar business. I still jokingly say I'm the one that brought the barcades to Kansas City, because, our barcade was the first one long before all the others. It's my fault that we all drink iced tea vodka now in Kansas City. That's my problem too. So, but it's been such an amazing journey that, it's just, you take all that road, and now we get to just share all that. And so that basically also gave me that life of becoming a college professor. Mm-hmm. So, I've become this big advocate for sharing what you've learned. And I think that's where I am in my career now, is not only giving to other people, mentoring to other people, but also educating. I think it's, what are we doing as a legacy, as executive leaders, to teach that next generation? Especially when we're starting to see a very introverted generation coming behind us. Do they understand that basic skill set as an executive, as a manager, et cetera, et cetera?
So when you put all that in the blender, the frappe, as you mentioned, and I could see how that would pay off at Hope Faith with the many different hats that you need to wear in terms of leadership. And I'm guessing you're not sitting in that office all day long, that you're outside, you're in the middle of all that. You're in that office right now because you're talking to me, and it's an easy spot to be, or you got a little bit of work to do among the rest of the work. But what brought you to Hope Faith, and how much did that diverse background enable you to succeed in this moment?
So a few years ago, my son and I are both scouts, right? So we had an opportunity to go volunteer at a thrift store. And so went there. My son really just loved, he got to be the toy tester, right? He got to test the toys and make sure before they got out onto the floor. So make sure that the toys worked right. And he loved that situation. And so, here's this perfect parent moment, right? It's like work ethic. Here's a great chance. How much did you really like this? He goes, "Oh, I loved it, Dad. This is really, really cool." I says, "Well, let's do this every Saturday. Let's teach you work ethic. Let's teach you how to show up for a job, do some work. I'll reward you with lunch afterwards or something." And this became a 2-year endeavor. And in this 2 years, obviously, I got to know the staff there, and, started to understand Hope Faith's mission and everything of that nature. And then the opportunity came about where, Hope Faith was looking for a new CEO, and started to have that conversation, and, clearly I already understood the mission and the point behind Hope Faith, and there you were. So up to that point, I just pretty much was being, a college professor and a full-time dad. And so I had to basically tell my son, well, Dad's going back in the mix, son, but it's been so much fun, because from my retail background, from my restaurant background, from all these different backgrounds, I mean, Hope Faith is a 50,000 square foot campus. So it's a lot of different moving parts. So someone who can speak all those languages was very necessary for the evolution of Hope Faith.
When you look at what you guys are doing at Hope Faith, and the website is hopefaith.org, 2019 numbers that are listed, so that doesn't account for January, over 87,000 hot meals served, more than 10,000 pounds of food harvested, 8,000 plus in clothing disbursements, more than 6,000 individuals served. You're talking about mass scale there. So my question to you, this is a little different than the restaurant background, although again, you could see the similarities. There's still customer service, taking care of people and purpose. How gratifying. I'm sure that there's a lot of moments of stress and a million moving parts, but how gratifying is this?
Well, when I first took over, it was kind of funny. One of the questions that the board asked me is like, well, are you used to dealing with unruly people? Maybe they might be drinking. I was like, I just kind of chuckled because I was like, I owned bars for 15 years. I had bars in Westport. How many St. Patty's days have I experienced, in my career, right? And so like, this will just feel like home to me, honestly. But when I first took over, there was 3 employees managing this 50,000 square foot campus. And now we're almost up to 30. And I mean, when you just start to think about capacity building, especially even during the pandemic, when all the agencies were furloughing and shutting down, like you said, working virtually, we don't really have that choice because we're humans helping humans. We can't set up a TV screen in the front of our building and go, hi, how may I help you? We have to be on the ground. And so it's been amazingly fulfilling because you're right. One of the new pieces that we're rolling out is what we're now calling the guest experience. Very top tier retail, right? It's how can we do a lot better job of concierge guest one-on-one experience? Because, one of the things we talked a lot about in our agency is just to walk through our threshold, you're having to admit that you're homeless or you're low income or you have nowhere to turn. So what we want to do is remove every barrier, remove every anxiety, remove every hurdle that you possibly can. So that mentality of very clinical feeling and very, armed guard and all that, we do have safety protocols, but at the same time is what can we do to make our guests, not our clients, our guests feel at home. So we're changing that whole structure out. So when you get there, once you're past our security check-in points, you get the next step is you're met by a greeter. Hi, welcome to Hope Faith. What are you here to do? Are you here to go get your hair cut in our salon? Are you here to get a meal? Are you here to do your laundry? Are you here to see a doctor, a dentist, an eye doctor, chiropractor, an audiologist? What are you here for? And it helps us obviously understand the needs of our guests, but at the same time, having that one-on-one person to remove that anxiety, I think, is crucial because, we've talked a lot about that one paycheck away mentality. We have seen it. We see people now who never in a million years would have thought they would be evicted because they were sustainable, right? And now they're living out of their cars. So what can we do? And so the worst thing you can do is just make them feel like they're coming in like an airport TSA. We want to make sure that they're feeling very welcome, very relaxed, safe, but making sure that we can take care of whatever their needs are, get them where they need to go.
Such important work. And there's so many topics just regarding the world here in terms of inclusion, in terms of race, in terms of humanity, really. I mean, and that's something you've always been in. You've always been in the people business. You're in the people business now, not just in a leadership role, but in one that at times could involve life and death. That certainly involves survival. And so I can imagine the purpose in that for you and your staff. Okay, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here, and the baseball theme questions brought to you by Kissick Construction, trusted team, reliable partner. You can check them out at kissicco.com. Professionally speaking, along all of those different careers that you have had, or maybe more importantly right now, what's the biggest home run you've hit?
It has to be where I'm at now. I mean, I love national retail. I love traveling the country. I don't miss traveling several weeks a month, but I think we all get to that point, and I think that's the one thing when I'm even talking to my students, my MBA students, my grad students, talking about what's your legacy? What are you going to leave? You can't take it with you. But really talking about legacy, because I think, I don't want to go too nerdy, but talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs or anything, but it's, a lot of people want a self-fulfillment, and I think that's why philanthropic endeavors have become a lot more prevalent now, because if you have it, you don't have, for every dollar you make, you don't have to give 99 cents, but it's, it's not as simple as, hey, go get a job. And so, I just landed where I landed because I've always been a giver. I've always, taken care of people, and that's just my nature. But if I can take my corporate background, my too much education and leadership and management and mentor, and just change the entire culture even of the nonprofit universe, because in my opinion, I think it's because we are doing it, we're going upstream against the entire nonprofit universe, is probably why we're getting so much attention, because we did hold our line. We didn't close. We continue to hold that line. And now, it's because of things like that, I feel like, in my staff's amazing, endless work, that the mayor and the city is really turning to us as a voice to say, well, what else could we be doing? And that's really where we're at now.
It's a huge home run, very inspirational too. How about on the other side of things, a swing and a miss, and what did you learn from it?
I tried to open up my own bars before, and I feel like rule number one on the miss was always make sure you have a good contract with investors before you sign the lease. So, but I think what that taught me is that any entrepreneur who's worth their weight has to have failed. I think you have to fail to understand and appreciate, and also to navigate. And so I think that's really what hopefully I'm learning from a lot of this is that, it takes a lot. It takes sweat equity. It takes human capital, humans helping humans. So again, I feel like I was always called to a customer facing business, period. I mean, I've never been a B2B guy. I'm a B to consumer. I want to face customers. That is what I love. I like to see people's joy and happiness. And so I think, finding a group of people that are like-minded is important.
And the final baseball theme question, small ball, that's what I wrote about. Small ball, big results. Small ball being the little things that add up to the big things. What is small ball for you, Jaysen?
Just loving what you do. I think, I always ask, my grad students, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, you have a lot of adults in the class start chuckling. Well, I'm already kind of grown up. I go, well, why are you in your MBA program? Are you here to get more money? Or are you to be more fulfilled? What do you want to be when you grow up? And so I think that's just a question I think we need to ask ourselves. It's, whether you have kids or not, do you want to do things, so people are, like your parents or whoever's proud of you? And again, it's, here lies Jaysen. Here's his LinkedIn bullet points on his headstone, or, he was a good person. He gave, he took all of his knowledge, he put it in that blender, and he fed it to those below him to carry on that torch long after he's gone. That's, for me, is my small ball. That fills my cup.
And that is what Jaysen is doing right now at Hope Faith Homeless Assistant Campus, and doing that work every single day throughout a pandemic. 4 final questions as we wind things up here, as we round the bases. I'll ask you the question then for my first. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
I had no idea. I've always been, I mean, it's funny, when we take our Myers-Briggs test, I don't know if you've ever had to do one of those tests, but
Yep.
I'm an INTP. So no one would ever see me and go, that's an introverted guy. But I'm more intro extro. So for me, it's you have to turn it on when you turn it on, but I go home and I'm very exhausted. And so for me, I didn't know really what I wanted. I knew I loved to help other people, and I'm the friend that will give you the shirt off my back or I'll buy you a shirt. I'm the fix it friend. So anytime a friend needs to get something repaired, they call Jaysen. He brings all his tools over. But I feel like, I'm exactly where I should be. I don't know how I got there. I loved design and advertising and creative. And who would have thunk coming from a undergraduate degree in graphic design and advertising, and then moving on to master's programs of executive leadership and such, and running companies. I wouldn't have been able to tell you that when I was a little kid, to be honest.
All right. Second question as we round the bases. How good of a soccer player were you?
Not as good as my brother. But I did play at KU, so but back in that days it was the Big 8, not the Big 12.
Well, and that leads me to my third question. I mean, there's something, and it's the reason why I try to connect those dots from the sports world to the business world. I think sports, certainly baseball, is one of the best teaching tools because, and look, there's some sports, tennis, golf, where you still have a team, but for the most part, you're on your own. Most of us in life will succeed because of the teams that we surround ourselves with or the teams that we're a part of. And you know that from your soccer days, you know that from your restaurant days, and every single step along the way. But tell me about the culture and what goes into Hope Faith, not the logistics, but how you keep everybody on the same page.
One of the things that I really preached at Hope Faith, again, I have a degree in organizational behavior and development because I love culture of organizations. And so with me, when I first got here, I really took a page from food and beverage, which instead of doing all staff meetings and all this, we have family meal. We talk a lot about our company, our team is family. We don't ever get a chance to really learn each other and learn how to support each other. And, when a radio call comes out that someone needs help picking something up or donations or whatever, it should be more, here am I, what do you need? And everyone is important. You've always said, it's like, treat everyone as if, they are your equal. There is no hierarchy. I mean, there's corporate structures, but at the end of the day, we're all a family. We live and die by each other. So for me, it's really a matter of spending as much time getting to know, engaging, and just it is. There's a lot of sports metaphors that we could use in this. And growing up, I played every sport, that they threw at me. So soccer is just the one that I carried on into high school and beyond. But for me, I think teamwork is important. I think being able to trust that person next to you. I think it's so important to know that, yes, we're all paid to be here, but at the end of the day, it's really that person next to you that's going to make or break it.
Final question, the walk-off, the first word in your organization, hope. Who doesn't need hope? We have, and I talked to you about this before we came on, so much divisiveness in this country for so many reasons, a lot of them infuriating. We won't get into all that. I've gotten into it before. We'll get into it again. But who doesn't want hope in this world? Sometimes it might be misplaced, but what does hope mean to you?
I think for me, it's just, believing that all of us are wanting the best in others. It's never fair. Obviously some of us are going to go further in life than others, but we don't know the traumas of every person that we walk by. To me, hope is really, what can you do to brighten all those around you? Right. And like I told you before, I come home exhausted because I give my entirety to, a universe, my staff. CEOs are supposed to be the motor. They're supposed to be that energy source that all team members can pull from, just like general managers, team captains, etc. You are that life force. And so for me, hope is giving of myself, because that is my love language. I am a giver. And I hope that people, pull from that, are inspired and go, what makes you the way you are? And I would love to share that with people. So it's, at the end of the day, it's how do I take what I feel and translate that to you, and you pull that energy and you move on and you kind of give that to another human being.
It's powerful, no doubt about it. If people want to learn more about Hope Faith, you can visit their website, hopefaith.org. That's two very powerful words, by the way, there in the title of the organization, the name of the organization, hopefaith.org. Are there any other ways or different things people can do if they want to be involved?
Well, I mean, under the pandemic, obviously we're not under normal conditions. We say support from afar. We want to continue to be safe under these conditions, but we would love you to follow our story, and share that story. Everything that comes out of my mouth is, we're Kansas Cityans helping our fellow Kansas Cityans. We are a Kansas City-based agency. I'm not a national group. This is my fellow Kansas Cityans employed here. We're helping homeless and low-income Kansas Cityans. And we need to remember that at this moment, there's over 2,000 homeless Kansas Cityans who need our help. And it's not always just a job situation. Mm-hmm. It's behavioral, traumas, whatever. So for us, we need to figure out how we can help our fellow Kansas Cityans. That's what this all boils down to.
Well, I'll encourage everybody to go to hopefaith.org. Continued success with all the extremely important work that you're doing. I won't read off the long list of skills to end this and bookend that, other than to say that, as you put it so perfectly, they have been put in a blender and they are paying off now in ways that are helping so many of these Kansas Cityans. Jaysen Van Sickle is the executive director of Hope Faith. Again, it's hopefaith.org. Jaysen, thanks for taking some time to spend with me today. I know that you're a busy man. I'll let you get back outside, but thanks for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
All right. So good to be able to spend time today with Jaysen Van Sickle. Very important episode, and hopefully one that'll give others out there a little bit of perspective and certainly some hope and faith during these times of the pandemic. Shout out to my sponsors, Kansas City Audio Visual, Kissick Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they demand and, frankly, are worthy of more than the status quo and need a local partner who understands their business. Again, you could check out the video version of this on my YouTube page. Love it if you would subscribe to that. You could search for it at Joel Goldberg Media or Rounding the Bases with Joel Goldberg, and you will find it there. And of course, we will continue to be up on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your audio podcasts. My name is Joel Goldberg. Thanks for listening to another episode of Rounding the Bases, and I hope to catch you next time.